Chicago's O'Hare Airport is the busiest in the nation. Hundreds of planes are coming and going daily, so safety on the tarmac is crucial. Yet there have been a string of potentially seriously mishaps on the runway. I sat down with Chicago Sun-Times reporter Robert Herguth for an in-depth look at the most recent incident. City workers assigned to ensure safety, but then somehow they end up finding themselves in unsafe situations.
There's runway construction going on right now at O'Hare. Some of those truck drivers have been stationed at key airfield intersections to ensure safety. We don't know exactly why this city worker sort of drove out of this live runway while an American Airlines jet was landing. Where he was going, though, was he was assigned to this safety task to basically relieve a colleague of his that was sitting at a runway intersection planted in a city truck, basically physically blocking the runway from construction traffic from accidentally going on there. So this guy who blundered on this runway, his task was to basically prevent the very thing that he did.
This isn't the first time that you've reported on this. This is something that's happened multiple times.
Yeah, unfortunately, this has been a recurring story. For the past couple of years, we've written a number of articles about these runway mishaps, these runway mistakes, not just by city workers, but by other airport workers as well, coming into sometimes very serious proximity to a landing or departing aircraft.
And tell me about this transparency issue where you were having a little difficulty trying to figure out where this worker was from or what agency that worker was from.
Now, when we got wind of this, we initially asked the Department of Aviation, which is overseen by Commissioner Jamie Rhee, so a top aide to Mayor Rahm Emanuel, about this, and her department was very tight-lipped, unfortunately, about this. In fact, initially, they would not even confirm it was one of their employees that was involved. Now, I discovered this on my own, and then later they relented and gave a little bit of information.
What did they tell you about specific consequences for city workers that get into situations like this?
The consequences, frankly, are relatively light. We don't know of any instance where anybody has been fired in recent years for blundering onto a runway where there was a plane landing, taking off, or even if a plane was not landing or taking off, you know, it was still a live runway with that potential and they shouldn't have been there. So we don't know of any instance where anybody was fired, and we're not advocating for that per se, but many of these workers have gotten no more than 5 days suspended. There have been more than 60 of these runway incursions, these mishaps, over the past 2.5 years. One of these is too many of these incidents, but they are, in relative terms, they don't happen that often. And that is true, but at the same time, you know, one can be catastrophic. There were no injuries in any of these incidents, and some of them were more severe than others, frankly. I mean, some of them, like the one we just reported on, there was a truck on there while a plane was actually on that runway. We don't know how close they were, or how fast they were going, or whatnot, because they won't talk to us from the city.
If anyone like Jamie Rhee decides to give you kind of a bigger understanding of what those safety measures mean, but do you plan on giving a follow-up?
Yeah, there'll be more stories.
Well, there you heard it. More stories to come. And it's normal to think, well, what would happen? You know, what's going on with traffic control? But permission from traffic control was apparently never asked for or granted. The Department of Aviation said they're going to go ahead and look on how they can make some improvements.